Hi guys and welcome to the second in our tutorial series here on how to play Football Manager. We're going to be talking today about the midfield. As you can see, we only have two sort of central midfielders here, but we're also going to include these attacking midfielders in the discussion today and how we would get those guys. What we'd be looking for those types of players. Excuse me. So let's just dive right in here. We've already covered the defence, so we've got that portion of the team filled in, and when we're done we'll have the whole selection filled in. Going to go for the midfield just now, then we'll look at the striker, and then we'll jump back and look at the goalkeeper for the last video on the selection series. So without further ado, let's have a little look at our midfielders here. So our first midfielder is a ball-winning midfielder in here, and as you can see the best player in the team for it is Timothy Fosu-Mensah. So we take a little look at him and we'll see what makes him a good fit for this role. By the way, another thing guys, when you look at these green circles here and you see the suitability as ball winning midfielder support is competent. So if you can get that fully filled in like Sarah is here as a ball playing defender, it says natural for that. If you can get that, then it's better, but really I don't worry too much about it as long as it's not like, I mean, for example, if we take Bothwick Jackson and put him in there and you hover over, you'll see it's ineffectual. You probably don't want to be doing that unless you're trying to train a player in a new position, which can sometimes work. But basically anything green, even if it's a sort of faint green, as long as it's green, it's going to be fine as long as he has the stats. So enough about that, let's look at the stats and see what we're looking for specifically in our ball-winning midfielder here. So Timothy Fosu-Mensah, as you can see by his stats down here in the Premier League, he had 34 Premier League starts with an average rating of a 7.26, and that equates to us winning the Premier League comfortably with 93 points. So he definitely is a good player. Some of his stats here don't look as high as you would necessarily imagine they would be. So ball-winning midfielder, the first obvious stat to take a look at is his tackling. So it's only a 15. Now, sometimes you might think 15 isn't very high. You might think 15 is a kind of middle of the road stat. 15 is actually pretty good. If you can get all the stats that they need at 15 and you can get some supplementary stats in that sort of 13-14 range, then you're looking at a really good player, because a lot of it's around how they function in the team rather than how they are individually. So I'm sure we've all had players we've come across and the numbers, bang, 18, 19, 17, 19, 16, 14. And when we actually use them, for some reason, they're just rotten. And it doesn't really make sense. They just don't play up to what their stats seem to be. And I know there's a few hidden stats in the game that you don't necessarily get to see, but that's not what does it for me. What does it for me? You could maybe have a winger who, you know, his crossing is 19 and his dribbling is 18 and he's got crazy pace stats, but his passing is only a 6 or something like that. A lot of players can get crippled by just having a supporting stat that's really low. So why am I saying this? What's this got to do with Fosu-Mensah here? Well, you'll see all of his stats that are important are good, and all of his stats which are supporting are good or competent. So tackling at 15, that's good. Could it be 16, 17, 18? I'm sure it could. And he's only 25 just now, so as he ages it might go up a couple. But that's what we're looking at first and foremost, of course, as a ball winner, his tackling. So, as a midfielder, he's sort of in that engine room where we really look to control the game. So he's going to be passing. His passing is 13. That's pretty good. As I say, it's in that competent range for the support stats. And also his player trait, he has plays short simple passes, which is excellent, exactly what you want for your player who's going to break up play. He also has look to pass rather than attempting to score, which as we can see his long shots of 11 is okay, but he's probably just going to boot it over the bar quite a lot, and his finishing is only 7, so we really don't want him taking many shots. So his passing of 13 is competent, and his player traits really suit that. So plays short, simple passes, passing stat of 13, more than good enough for short, simple passes. He's not, more often than not, going to try a crazy over-the-top long ball, where maybe you would like his passing to be in the sort of 16 to 18 range to be good at that. He's going to be perfect for the type of short passing game we're looking to play. So marking is another thing. If we've got a dangerous player in the midfield, say the other team we're coming up against has Toni Kroos, say we're playing Real Madrid and they have Toni Kroos, marking of 13, Now, again, it's in that sort of competency range. Marking is not what we're wanting Fosu Mensah to be brilliant at. We want him to be able to do a tackling job, but when we don't have the ball, we want him in position, in a good position. When we do have the ball, we want him to be making room for a pass. So marking's not something we're going to be overly concerned about, but he can do it if necessary. First touch again, 13, perfectly capable to take a touch, play a simple pass, take a touch, play a simple pass. We don't want him dilly-dallying on the ball. His dribbling, incidentally, is 12, so if he does have to take a touch and look around for an option, again, he's competent, he can do that. Sometimes what you find with ball-winning players is that they'll be a big bruiser, they'll have great tackling, they'll have great marking, they'll have 17 marking with 19 tackling, but their dribbling will be 6. So although they get the ball, they really have to move it on quickly, or they're going to lose it just as quickly because they can't do very well on ball control. Fosu Mensah, good tackling, competent marking, and competent to good first touch, dribbling and passing. So he's a good player to retain the ball when you're playing, as we are with Man United here, a possession-based style of game. So that's the main thing about his technical stats there. Nothing, his technique is 13 as well, that's also good. With your big bruiser style players, you'll find that their technique is often lacking. It'll be a 9 or a 10 or something like that, meaning he doesn't have the technique, maybe to trap a difficult ball, or maybe to... Well, let's actually see what it says. What does it say specifically? The aesthetic quality of a player's technical game, how refined they are with the ball at feet. Technique is important, being able to pull off a tricky pass or cross-field ball. So, actually... it probably doesn't. First touch is probably all that it influences bringing down a tricky ball. Well, that actually says reflexibility to control the ball immediately as it's passed into feet. So maybe trapping the ball out there would be some combination of first touch and technique. Not entirely certain. But technique means he can play a decent pass when needed to be, and that will combine with his 13 passing. Competent at the passing game, although he does often try and play short, simple passes. A lot of this sort of... is more intuitive. It sounds a lot when it's explained out like this, but mental stats for a ball winner more important, and the physical stats, which we will come to. But anticipation, really vital. A player who's going to be breaking up the game really needs to be able to anticipate. So as we talked about with the defenders, he's going to see a man making a run, he's going to think the pass is coming through there, he can step in to cut the pass out, or when the ball goes through, he can be right there to put a tackle in as soon as the man traps the ball, that kind of thing. Anticipation, vital, 15, solid stat. Bravery, of course, to go in for those challenges, 50-50 balls perhaps, vital for a ball winner. 14, high end of competent, absolutely. I can hear a thunderstorm, I think. Absolutely necessary for the man who's going to break up play. Composure, 13. Let's actually see what that technically does. Attributes: player steadiness of mind and ability to make intelligent decisions with and without the ball. Completely necessary. Intelligent decisions. Who are you going to look at? Are you going to track the runner? Are you going to set, etc, etc. Brilliant stat. I always think about composure as combining with finishing for a striker, but it really does affect players all over the pitch. Concentration, again, as we talked about for the centre backs. Mental focus, attention to detail on event by event basis. So again, linking up with anticipation there, actually. Anticipation good, and concentration on the high end of competent. Those two are going to go together, and he's going to be able to break up the play. He's going to be able to see where the passes are coming, where the runners are going to go. Decisions, likewise, he's good at concentrating, he's good at anticipation, so he sees these things coming. Decisions are what one he's going to go for. So for example, he sees 2 runs, he knows the ball could go to one of those 2 guys. What one does he track? Better decisions, he's more likely to track the more dangerous ball. Or he's more likely to track a run with no cover. So if there's a guy, for example, we'll look at our little pitch here. There's a guy running up the wing, fullback's in position. There's a guy running up the wing, fullback's away up here, out of position. With better decisions, he's more likely to track the one with no cover and leave the one that's got cover there. So decisions being at 13, again, competent. When it's combined with his good anticipation, composure, concentration, 13 for decisions, pretty good. It will get better as he ages. He's only 25 just now, but perfectly reasonable just now. Another one we want to look at, off the ball. You can see a lot of these stats will combine together. So this is the player's ability to move when not in possession of the ball, make themselves available to receive a pass in a dangerous position. So essentially, for him, he's going to hang back in the midfield, being a ball-winning midfielder. So when we're up round the edge of the box, which we're going to discuss when we talk about the attacking midfielders, they're going to be probing in the middle here, trying to find a way through the defence. He's going to be hanging back, looking for a position where he can just be a support ball, where perhaps they can cycle the ball to him, he'll pick it up unmarked, draw a person out, play a simple pass to somebody more creative, and we can ping our way in. So really, his off the ball just has to be competent. 12, maybe the lower end of competent, but perfectly reasonable for what he's going to be doing for us. Positioning, ability to read a situation, manoeuvre themselves into the best position, possible location to deal with unfolding events. So again, another stat that combines with decisions, composure and concentration and anticipation, all of them going together. Positioning at 14, the high end of competency, perfectly reasonable for what we need. Work rate at 13, this is possibly the only stat where I would say I would like it to be a little bit higher. 13 is competent, but work rate for a player who's going to, be closing down a lot and things like that, I would kind of like his work rate to be a little bit higher. His willingness to work at full capacity, going above and beyond. Yeah, I'd like his work rate to be a little bit higher than 13 if I'm perfectly honest. It might go up as he ages, but I'd like it to be a little bit higher. He's doing the job for us, obviously, in a very, very good team. But if I had one complaint about him just now, it's probably his work rate. So that's the mental stats. We go over to the physical stats. These are just absolutely top notch, and these are what make Fosu Mensah a really, really good player. He's an absolute hoose of a guy, if you pardon the Glaswegian expression there. 191 centimetres tall, huge guy, and weight 86 kilos again. Huge, well, not a huge dude in terms of his weight, but a very big guy for a football player. If we take a look at these, acceleration 15, good, agility 15, good, balance 15, good, natural fitness 16, pace 16, good, all good, stamina 15, good, strength 19, jumping reach 18, an absolute monster. And you combine those with his heading of 13. So the centre backs, their jumping, their heading, their height, pretty important, but also the ball winner, because if the goalkeeper takes a long goal kick, he is probably going to win the header, and with a heading of 13, he's probably going to be able to cushion it down to somebody in his own team. So that is vital, a great part of again, you combine that with his anticipation, his positioning, his decisions. Where do I go? Who do I mark? Ball goes up into the air from the goalkeeper. He knows where the ball's going. He can anticipate it coming down, jumps up, beats the man, cushions it down, and we're away from their goal kick. Same thing goes for defending free kicks, defending corners, that kind of thing. He's an absolute monster to break up the play in those kind of situations. Just a phenomenal player. And it's these physical stats that make him an absolute boss in a world-class team. I would have a defensive midfielder, a ball-winning midfielder, I should say, with monstrous physical stats and competent to good technical and mental stats. So we've gone through all these. None of them are particularly lacking. His work rate's 13. I said I would like that a bit better, but it's still competent. Nothing's lacking. Passing and all that are kind of 12, 13 good stats, but they complement these monstrous physical stats. If these physical stats were just kind of in the competent range, then he suddenly becomes a competent player. But because these are so good and he's competent technically, it just makes him an absolute monster. So I think we've covered enough on Timothy Fosu Mensah and what makes him the archetypical ball-winning midfielder for us. So we'll look box to box. His partner here, and Paul Pogba with the 4.5 stars, is the best in this position. And we're going to see what makes a box-to-box midfielder, and we're perhaps going to see what makes him. So he's described as a legendary midfielder now. We're going to see what makes him so damn good in this game. Now, box to box, let's actually highlight what it tells us. It gives us a little shading over the back. You see, if we select what we're looking at here, it gives us a bit of shading behind what we're going to look at. So box to box midfielder, let's just talk a little brief bit about what it is. A ball winning midfielder is fairly self-explanatory. You're a midfielder and you win the ball. Now, a box to box midfielder is a little bit more complicated. So he's a player who's going to get back when we're in a bit of trouble. He's maybe going to pinch a ball, make a pass into the midfield, bust a gut to get in. Maybe he wins it back in the edge of his own box, plays it out to the wing back, busts forward, wing back gets forward, cuts it back, and he rattles it in. A bit simplistic, but that's kind of the theory behind a box-to-box midfielder. So technically, what do they need to be good at? Finishing, 16 finishing on Pogba, good, definitely, in the higher end of good, verging on brilliant. First touch, of course, all midfielders have to be good at first touch to be able to keep the ball and cycle the ball around. 20, can't get better than that. Paul Pogba, brilliant first touch. If the ball can be trapped, he's going to do it. Long shots for those digs at the edge of the box, 18, brilliant, great stat. 18 for Paul Pogba, great long shots. Passing, likewise, all midfielders need to be able to pass. A midfielder, if nothing, and this is the thing, for whatever the role is in the midfield, if perhaps you're a smaller club, I've taken my Man United team here to just be able to show off players who are really, really good in these roles, but perhaps you're a smaller club. If there's one thing I would say to look at for your midfielders, first touch, passing. The one thing that midfielder needs to be able to do is retain possession when you've got the ball. So take the ball down, trap the ball, pass the ball. That's the main thing that they need to be able to do. Dribbling is actually good as well. It's not got a little shaded highlight here, but if Pogba had to trap the ball, doesn't see an immediate pass, needs to spend a bit of time on the ball, dribbling as well. 16 for him, brilliant. Passing 17, as we said. Tackling, his is only 13. It's actually gone down. Let's see his attributes here. It's taking a bit of a dive. That's not very good. Went down by 0.2. What have I clicked on? So we'll actually go through training as well in a later tutorial. I just looked at the summary of his training and his attribute changes just there. We'll go through training later on after we've gone through all the positions on the field. But yeah, tackling. Go back to the box to box. Tackling 13. It's competent. It's kind of like the Fosu Mensah thing again. Pogba has to do a job in tracking back, but he's more of an offensive-minded player. So 13 tackling. Perfectly competent. If there's a tackle there to be made, he can probably make it. Technique of 18 as well is going to, of course, the more complicated passes, that kind of thing, switching the play. 18, brilliant. So, another thing to look at here, mental stats, of course. Anticipation, as we talked about on Fosu Mensah, bravery, composure, concentration, the ability to read the game, basically track the game, see what's going on. Decisions, 13. Again, 13 is not a bad stat. It goes all the way up to 20. So I think sometimes there's the thinking that 13 is not a good stat for a player at a Man United or Real Madrid. A 13 is not bad as long as it's backed up and complemented by other stats. Nothing wrong with a 13. Determination, 17. Of course, if he's going to be a player who's going to get up and down the pitch, work, sort of as the name suggests, from box to box, tracking back, busting forward. Determination is going to be really important. He has 17. So very good determination on that. Determination also, incidentally, functions as sort of a training modifier. Someone with lower determination isn't going to train as well and perhaps isn't going to develop as well. So 17, good for his off the field development too. Off the ball, 17. So again, off the ball going to be vital for somebody who's getting box to box. He needs to be able to take up those positions. If the ball is perhaps out wide, going to be cut back, he needs to know whether to bust into the box or whether to hold on the edge of the area for the long shot. So he's got to do stuff like that for his positioning. And when he's tracking back, he needs to get into the right position, maybe to make an interception. So again, that's one of those things. Positioning 13, competent, perfectly reasonable. He is more of an offensive player for me, so a 13 is perfectly reasonable for a stat like that. Work rate 15, yeah, that's perfectly good. Work rate of 15. It has to get box to box. 15 combined with a 17 determination, perfectly capable of getting him up and down. Going over to his physical stats just now, not quite as good as Fosu Mensah, but then hardly anyone is. An acceleration of 13, so he gets up to pace relatively quickly, but he's not exactly Usain Bolt. His agility of 15, again, perfectly good, perfectly reasonable. Pace of 16, so he's a competent player getting about the park, above average. He's going to get up to pace. He's going to be able to run around, turning. Agility quite important for being able to turn quickly and things. If you take a look at the actual descriptor here, reflects how well a player can start, stop, and move in different directions at varying levels of speed, both on and off the ball. So as a player who's going to have to get up and down the park and change direction a lot, agility quite important, and 15 perfectly good. His balance of 18 there, excellent. Reflects how well a player can stay on his feet both on and off the ball. So, perhaps not going to slip over or not going to get knocked off the ball or anything like that. So that's important. Maybe when he goes in for a shoulder-to-shoulder challenge, he's going to be able to bounce a player off the ball more effectively to win it. Of course, that's going to combine with his strength, which is 17. Again, not as good as Fosu Mensah, but 17, perfectly good. On the higher end of good, actually, trending towards a brilliant stat. Natural fitness 17. Natural fitness, basically just sort of injuries and things. How well a player stays fit when injured or not in training. It is also used to determine how well they maintain their physical attributes past their peak and maintain fitness between matches. So 17 is good. He's only 30 years of age just now. You can see some of his training stats are on the down here. It's in June, so we've just finished the season, so perhaps he's had a bit of a lazy month just now because I think he's on, yeah, they're on holiday just now, so stats probably tending to trend down at this period. Stamina 15, again his ability to get up and down without getting too tired. 15, perfectly capable, perfectly good for what we need him on. His traits here, gets into the opposition area, something that you would like on a player who is box to box and has good finishing, can bust into the box arriving late, another man in there, defenders maybe not picking him up, can slot it away. Think a Frank Lampard type, somebody who arrives in at the box late and manages to score a goal. As you can see down in his season stats here, Premier League 21 appearances, 9 goals, so perfectly good for a midfielder. Shoots from distance, obviously with him having the 18 long shots, that's something you want him to have. Runs up the park, gets to the edge of the area, slams it in. He also has dwells on the ball. Considering though he has 16 dribbling, has decent decisions, good composure and things. I trust him to dwell on the ball so he can pick out the correct pass. With 17 passing and 18 technique, he will more often than not pick a good ball, so I don't mind him dwelling on it. Excuse me while I take on a refreshment. So that's Paul Pogba in that midfield position. Again, just to summarise real quickly, I promise. Defensive midfielders, looking at his tackling, looking at his first touch, looking at his passing, combined with the mental and the physical attributes. A more offensive midfielder, first touch and passing, combined with his technique for the long range passes or the passes to unlock the defence, possibly dribbling as well, depending on how long he's going to be on the ball. Maybe finishing on long shots if you want him to get up there and chip in with goals, obviously combined with the mental and physical as always. So, now we're on to these attacking midfielders who are just attacking midfielders with the attack duty. So they're going to support the striker who is a false 9. So they all kind of intermingle up there. Antoine Griezmann is the best in that position, followed by Martin Odegaard. So have a look at what makes Griezmann special in this position. 32 years old. He is a legendary winger, but I play him, of course, in that position in behind. His training stats are actually going up. So, in that position, where are we? Let's highlight what we want highlighted. So, first touch, always important for the midfielder, as I say. First touch 20, passing 15. When we're playing this game where we're cycling the ball around, those are the important stats for the players who are going to be central trying to unlock the defence. Long shots 14. Again, a perfectly competent stat. If the opportunity comes up and they give him space, he can slam the ball in from the edge of the box. Technique 18, so he can pick out the great pass, or maybe he can, he can come up with a volley should the chance arise, that kind of thing. So he's perfectly good at that sort of thing. That's the main technical stats for him, but also his dribbling 16. He can run at a defender if need be. Take them on. Same with his finishing, 18 if the opportunity arises for him to get into the box. He can slot the ball home. Free kick taking is always nice. It's not obviously role specific, but it's good for him there. Heading of 15 is actually interesting, although his jumping is 8, so he's unlikely to ever get the chance to head it. But should he arrive late into the box, not being picked up by the defenders, he is accurate with his heading to slam that in. As you can see, Premier League stats down the bottom again, 30 starts, 17 goals. So very, very capable from that position of scoring the goals. If we move over to his mental stats, his anticipation is 16. we're looking at the opposite end of anticipation now. Anticipation for a defender is perhaps seeing a move coming, seeing a run to track that run. Anticipation for a more offensive minded player here in Griezmann, his anticipation maybe is looking at where a defender is going to go. So he anticipates, say Paul Pogba is making one of his runs up from midfield, the defender anticipates Pogba's run and goes with Pogba. Griezmann anticipates that happening and realises that defender is going to be trying to track Pogba and thus leaving a space. So his anticipation is anticipating what the defenders are going to do and where he can perhaps get a bit of space for himself. Composure, just is he going to be able to slot the ball in? Is he going to be composed with the ball at his feet? That kind of thing, of course, very important. Decisions, again, what's he going to do? Is he going to pass the ball out wide, or is he going to take that long shot on? Is he going to try and slip the ball through for the striker, or is it easily going to be intercepted by the defender? That kind of thing. 16, again, good. All of these stats are good or great pretty much for Griezmann. Off the ball, 18. So again, a lot of that is decision making. What does he do off the ball? Does he burst into the box to try and get the finish there? Does he drop off actually because he thinks the defenders are going to go deep and he might have a chance to hit the long shot? That kind of thing. Positioning kind of goes along with that. Teamwork. Well, let's see the official descriptor on teamwork. How the player can follow tactical instructions while working for and alongside his teammates. So is he going to be able to sit there and be disciplined, I suppose you would say? Is he going to be able to sit there and cycle the ball around and try and look for a gap? Or is he going to sort of get impatient, go into business for himself and try and dribble his way through without involving his teammates? 12 is perfectly competent, given the fact that Griezmann is such a good player. All his other stats are good or excellent pretty much. 12 perhaps a little bit on the low side if it wasn't for the fact that all of his other stats are so damn good. So 12 is perfectly reasonable. Vision, 15. Let's get the official descriptor on vision. The player's ability to see a potential opening and spot an opportunity another player may not have seen. So pretty much a bit like the anticipation and the decisions. You know, he sees a run with his anticipation. With his vision. And he plays the ball in, pretty much. You know, he sees a run coming, gets his head up, that sort of thing. 15, perfectly reasonable. None of his physical stats have actually been highlighted here. It's kind of a good thing. His physical stats are a bit lacking. Acceleration of 11, pace of 12, so he's not a particularly quick player. He is 32 years of age now, of course, so some of those stats are going to be diminishing. Agility is still 15, so that is kind of important because he will need to run in there and turn around, so perhaps he starts running at the defence and all of a sudden he spots a better ball, so he decides he's going to stop. He's going to, he's going to start running at the defence, then he's going to have to stop and turn because the fullback he noticed is making a better move. You know, his vision, he's used his vision, sees the fullback making a better move, decides to slow down, wait for the fullback, and then he gets a double team, that kind of thing. So his agility is important and his agility is still good. That kind of comes up with his balance as well. His strength is only 10, so if he gets in like a shoulder-to-shoulder duel with a centre-back, he's probably going to get bounced off the ball, but a lot of that's to do with his off-the-ball movement to get into a good position where he's going to pick it up in space and he can shift it quickly, or he's not going to end up in those sort of shoulder-to-shoulder physical duels. His jumping, as we already said, is piss poor, and he's quite small, so he's not really going to be very much use in the air, but that's not what he's for. So that's Antoine Griezmann in that role. Martin Odegaard's pretty much the same thing. Run through his stats relatively quickly. First touch, long shots, passing, technique, anticipation, composure, decisions, off the ball positioning, teamwork, vision, all of them, good stuff. Couple of stats low, finishing's only 10, but he's still relatively good. Premier League, 25 starts there, 11 goals and 9 assists, so he's still a good player. Plays 1-2, so he can knock it into the striker, make a run in. His off-the-ball movement's pretty decent at 13 there, knocks it into the striker, runs off the ball, gets through, anticipates a defender moving into another position to track the fullback perhaps, gets his way through. He's got pretty good pace stats though, being younger, only 24, so he can knock it in, run quickly into a gap that's opened up and slot it away. His composure is 16, so though he only has 10 for finishing, he's not going to get flustered by defenders being round about him and stuff, so he does do pretty well on his finishing even though it is only 10. So that's him. in that position, and that's pretty much the midfield. We went on a little bit about Paul Pogba and Timothy Fosu-Mensah in there, rather, a lot longer than we talked about Griezmann and Odegaard, but Fosu-Mensah and Pogba are probably the most important people in this formation. They're going to be the players who need to be able to take care of the ball, need to be able to win the ball back, because with Vlad, Paul here and Shaw being the wide men, they're going to burst forward, and that's going to leave the three at the back here pretty exposed if Pogba and Fosu-Mensah can't shield them well. And Pogba and Fosu-Mensah, of course, in this team can shield them very, very well. They're excellent players. So they're good. They don't give the ball away. Fosu-Mensah gives a good option when we're high up the park, we're trying to push. He can be used to just recycle possession a little bit, hold on to the ball. We can go back to these guys, we can knock it about a bit and sort of get forward again. So Pogba and Fosu-Mensah are the most important, and they're the players, particularly Fosu-Mensah, where you're less likely to get away with a really handicapped stat. So for example, Odegaard's 10 finishing is quite low. It's pretty low, but he gets away with it because his other stats are so good. Fosu-Mensah, for example, having a 10 for anticipation, we wouldn't get away with that. He wouldn't read the game properly, and it would kind of break the tactic, because our ball-winning midfielder wouldn't be able to win the ball back, wouldn't be able to read the situations, and we would concede a lot more goals going the other way. Quickly, just as I forgot, Griezmann, the player traits I didn't do for these guys. Runs with ball through centre. Perfectly good for what we're using him for. He's attacking midfielder in the centre. He'll pick up the ball. He'll run at a defender. He has 16 dribbling and 17 flair. Flair, by the way, for those who aren't aware, the player's natural talent for the creative and the unpredictable. So perhaps he's going to pick it up, he's going to run it at a defender and do something a defender's not expecting. So that combined with 16 dribbling and 18 finishing, as well as the 21st touch, perfect. Though the fullback might batter up the wing, roll it into Griezmann, takes an excellent first touch, and he's running at the defender immediately. Agility 15, gets turned quickly, runs at the defender. So that's important. Moves into channels could also be useful. If we've got the ball in the centre here, the Odegaard, the other central attacking midfielder there, is knocking it about between him and the striker. Paul Pogba runs forward. Griezmann thinks it's a bit congested in here, drifts out to the channel. That's useful. Shoots from distance likewise. Only 14 long shots, but perfectly capable. He'll crack a long shot every now and then. 14 is perfectly good for him, especially with somebody who's got 18 technique. He knows how to curl the ball well and such. So those traits are good for him. Odegaard's traits, cuts inside from the right wing. He's never on the right wing. We play him in the middle, so that doesn't matter. Plays 1-2s. Very good because he can pass well and he can bust in. So he can knock the ball into the striker, runs into a space. So that's perfectly good as well. So that's the midfield episode here. It ran a little longer than the defending episode, but it is a little bit more complicated. I think we're probably going to talk about the striker next time, which will be a bit of a shorter episode because I only play one striker here. I'll run through a couple of different options and what you might want to look for if you're using a target man perhaps, or maybe you're using a poacher or something rather than a false nine. So I'll run through a couple of options next time. But that's the midfielders episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, then pop down below and leave a like. It would be much appreciated. Relatively good view count on the defending episode, so I do hope that this one picks up where that one left off, and I hope it's a sign that people are finding it important or valuable. Anything you want to say in the comments would be greatly appreciated. Perhaps something I didn't cover in the video, or something you'd like to see covered, maybe another aspect of the game that you have trouble with, and I'll endeavour to do my best to explain how it works, or at least how it works for me. And yeah, I won't ramble on too much longer because this has been quite a long episode now. So I'll see you guys next time for the striker episode.